Most people imagine a high IQ as a genius in a lab coat, solving impossible equations. Confident, articulate, never second-guessing. But the reality? It's staying awake until 3 a.m. catastrophically arguing with yourself about something you said in 2012. It's chaotic, it's exhausting, and it's rarely what we expect. Psychology reveals that the top 1% don't feel like geniuses. They feel like frauds. They talk to themselves, forget their keys, and live in a mental state that's far more human than anyone admits. If this sounds like your life, here are 9 patterns of extremely high intelligence that most people mistake for flaws. Pattern 1. The Imposter Syndrome Paradox. The single most consistent pattern in people with very high IQs is that they doubt themselves more than almost anyone around them. They're not fishing for reassurance. Genuinely, structurally, they believe they are less capable than they are. Research on competence and self-assessment consistently shows that higher performers tend to underestimate their relative standing, while lower performers overestimate theirs. This is the psychological phenomenon known as the Dunning-Kruger effect in reverse. The more deeply someone understands a domain, the more clearly they can see its full complexity and therefore all the ways they're still falling short. The person who barely understands something tends to feel surprisingly confident. The person who understands it deeply sees the gaps in what they don't know yet. What this produces in high IQ individuals is a kind of permanent low-level anxiety that they're somehow getting away with something, that people around them have overestimated them, that eventually someone's going to figure it out and the smarter they are, the more elaborate the internal case they can build against themselves. Because that same cognitive machinery that makes them excellent at complex reasoning is equally great at constructing reasons why they're not good enough. It's almost funny when you step back. The person most qualified to be in the room is often the one most convinced they shouldn't be there. Pattern 2. Self-directed speech. They talk to themselves out loud, more than they'd probably admit at a dinner party. And this one actually has solid research behind it. Private speech, the technical term for self-directed verbal thought, is well documented as a tool for cognitive self-regulation and executive function. Studies show that saying something out loud genuinely helps the brain process it differently than just thinking it. What we observe in many high IQ individuals is a strong tendency to use language as a tool for thinking, not just communicating. When there's nobody to talk to, the conversation still has utility, so they have it anyway. Pattern 3. Conversational Precognition. Here's something nobody talks about. Highly intelligent people often get bored mid-conversation because they've already predicted where it's going. Their pattern recognition is so fast that by sentence 3, they've mapped the entire trajectory. They know the conclusion, the counterargument, the anecdote that's coming next. So they're sitting there nodding, but internally they're 12 steps ahead, waiting for the conversation to catch up to where their brain already went. This isn't arrogance, it's pattern completion happening faster than real-time social interaction allows, which is why they sometimes zone out or seem distracted. They're not ignoring you. They're just mentally finished with a conversation that's still happening. And here's the uncomfortable part. They also simulate conversations before they happen. Entire dialogues, with multiple variations. They mentally rehearse arguments they'll never have, responses to criticism that hasn't been given, explanations for decisions they haven't made yet. Their brain treats potential future conversations as problems to solve in advance. Pattern 4. Sensory processing overload. People with very high IQs are disproportionately likely to experience the world as too loud, too bright, just too much. And this isn't hypersensitivity as a character flaw. Research has found associations between high cognitive ability and heightened sensory processing sensitivity, meaning the brain that takes in more information analytically may also quite literally take in more sensory input than average. Crowded restaurants become genuinely overwhelming in a way they aren't for other people. Certain textures, sounds, or lighting conditions register as intrusive rather than background. The same bandwidth that processes complexity deeply also processes the environment deeply. Here's a myth that needs to die. Highly intelligent people have photographic memories. They don't. In fact, they often forget mundane, ordinary, embarrassing things, like where they put their keys, whether they replied to that text, the name of someone they've met 4 times. This drives the people around them insane. It also drives them insane. But the explanation that makes the most sense cognitively is prioritization. A mind heavily invested in complex, abstract thinking appears to allocate less attention to low-stakes, repetitive information. Pattern 5. The night owl neural override. High IQ individuals are disproportionately likely to be night owls, and this isn't a lifestyle preference. It appears to be neurological. Research by Kanazawa and Perina, published in Personality and Individual Differences, found that people with higher measured intelligence consistently went to bed later and woke up later than their lower IQ counterparts, even after controlling for job schedules and social obligations. The researchers framed it through an evolutionary lens. The capacity to override your circadian rhythm for abstract, self-chosen reasons, like reading, thinking, creating, is a relatively recent human behavior, and it appears to show up more in people with higher general intelligence. What this means in practice is that a lot of very smart people are chronically sleep-deprived, slightly dysregulated, and operating in a world that was built around a morning schedule they will never naturally fit into, which often comes across as lazy, but their hardware just ticks differently. Pattern 6. Pre-thinking the future. They don't just overthink the past, they pre-think the future, and then get anxious about things that haven't even happened yet. In fact, their brains are constantly running simulations of potential disasters, uncomfortable scenarios, and problems that exist only in possibility space. While research by Penny and Bott showed a genuine link between high verbal intelligence and elevated worry. The same capacity for predictive thinking that makes someone analytically gifted also makes them extremely good at imagining everything that could go wrong. Your brain is, among other things, a threat detection machine. So a more powerful brain doesn't necessarily mean a calmer one. Sometimes it means a faster, more thorough threat detector. High IQ individuals spend an enormous amount of mental energy managing anxiety about futures that will probably never exist. Pattern 7. Productive procrastination. Here's something most people don't understand about intelligent procrastinators. They're not avoiding work because they can't focus. They're waiting for something specific, the stress-induced dopamine spike that makes mundane tasks neurologically tolerable. For tasks that don't inherently interest them, highly intelligent people often need the pressure of a deadline to trigger the neurochemical conditions required for sustained attention. Their brains are optimized for complex, novel problems. Routine tasks don't provide enough stimulation to maintain engagement until urgency creates artificial stakes. So when they wait until the last minute, they're not being irresponsible. They're unconsciously engineering the cognitive state they need to execute efficiently. The problem is that this looks exactly like poor time management from the outside. But internally, it's their brain refusing to waste processing power on something that doesn't justify the effort yet. This is why many highly intelligent people are labeled as lazy but brilliant. They're not lazy. They're just neurologically incapable of caring about things their brain has categorized as insufficiently complex to warrant immediate attention. Pattern 8. The information optimizer. And here's one you might be doing right now. If you're scrolling down to the comments while this video is still playing, looking for a summary or timestamps, congratulations. You just revealed another high IQ pattern. Information optimization. Highly intelligent people rarely consume information linearly. They're scanning for the most efficient path to knowledge. They read conclusions first. They skip to the last chapter. They check the comments to see if someone already distilled the key points. Not because they're impatient, but because their brain is constantly calculating. What's the fastest route to understanding this? This drives content creators insane, by the way, but it's actually a sign of advanced cognitive efficiency. Your brain is asking, do I need all the context or can I extract the core insight and move on? Most people consume information the way it's presented. Intelligent people restructure the information stream to match how their brain actually processes. So if you pause this video to read something or you're tempted to jump ahead, that's not a short attention span. That's your brain optimizing for comprehension speed over linear consumption. Pattern 9. Cognitive flexibility. One final trait. Intelligent people are surprisingly comfortable being wrong. If new information appears, they don't feel the need to defend their old beliefs. They simply update their understanding. Psychologists call this cognitive flexibility, the ability to treat beliefs as flexible mental models rather than fixed identities. When new evidence appears, their brain updates the model. This ability is linked to advanced problem-solving and adaptive thinking. But it confuses people around them because one day they say one thing, and 2 days later, they say the opposite. Not because they're inconsistent, but because their brain already found better information. In psychology, this is considered a hallmark of mature intelligence. The willingness to say, I used to think X, but now I understand Y, without shame. And if you want more psychology that makes the invisible visible, subscribe.